Hello, YouTube. It is I, sneakyteak. So glad to be back with a brief revisit to APICO. APICO, as a quick refresher, described by the devs as a laid-back beekeeping sim. This game was built by two devs, both siblings, and it was heavily inspired by the forestry mod for Minecraft. That's APICO. We took a look at the demo on the channel a week or so ago, or 2 weeks ago. Time is very strange now. And there was really a lot of interest in it, and so I thought it would be fun today to dive back into the game after it came out. I bought the full copy. I played several hours, maybe 5 or 6 hours on stream last night with my wife, and so I thought it would be fun to kind of dive in and do like a cribs tour. Basically look, okay, here are the things we have set up, here's the flow of our house and of our, beekeeping areas, our apiary, now that we've played for a few hours of the full release. And I also thought that maybe I could mix in some tips and tricks, things that I've noticed, things that caught me off guard, potential pitfalls. So kind of a combination video of looking at our particular setup so you can see what our creative ideas are, some tips and tricks, and also just a bit of a review of what I've enjoyed in the game and what I'm looking forward to. That's the plan today. Should be fun. Before I dive in, a quick disclaimer. Of course, there will be some amount of spoilers in this video, but they should be fairly light and mostly mechanical. So what I will show you are some of the early bees, almost all of the equipment that you can get, at least in the early game. I'm going to, show you some flowers and some of these basic components of the game. However, I'm not going to show any secrets. I'm not going to show any other biomes. 100% of what I'm showing off is something that you can access and encounter within the first several hours on the first island, in the first place where you spawn into the game. So that's the plan. Let's dive right in. Going to continue from the Bevsies save file. That's my wife. This was the demo file that we played together. In we go. So here's our little house. Oh my gosh, my stomach is grumbling. I'm hungry. I'm going to have to get some honey of my own after this. Here's our little house. Bevsies really wanted to build a house on the water, and so we did. The kind of wet room here, or dock room, honestly really reminds me of being in Louisiana and driving along the rivers, or rather boating along the rivers and seeing people whose houses are right there, right on the riverside. And this room is mostly cosmetic, not doing a lot here. It has this bookshelf which you can find, which gives you some sense of your progress through the game. I have been focusing on doing quests in the guide, because I think that the guide is a really natural mechanism to guide you through the game. Especially if you're like me. I never played Minecraft. And so if any of you are like me, you might find that particularly some of the crafting and menuing elements are a little overwhelming. I just didn't have the hand intuition. What buttons do I press? And so the guide really helped me figure things out, like, as an example, okay, well, I can select one of my menus as the target and then shift-click to instantly transfer all of the material from one place to another. Couple crates around the room, and kind of showing off that trick. Honestly, this has been bread and butter, absolutely important for being able to speed up some of the interactions in the game. You can click this little circle button to set a menu as a target. This is especially important if you have several menus open, which you can do. Anything that's within reach, and organize it around the screen. You can press the little circle button to set a menu as the target, or you can just mouse over it and press Q on your keyboard if you're using KBM. And once that's done, like I said, shift-click to transfer the whole stack. There's also cute things like right-clicking to get half a stack, or picking up a stack and then right-clicking again to get single copies. Most of this stuff is in the guide, but I will say setting targets and shift-click, absolutely freaking crucial at some point in this game, and I'll show you why here in just a second. So I've got a few boxes throughout the house that store different things. I've got mysterious secret objects here, which I won't go into. This little crate, we've got mostly forage. This will have flowers and things when I'm picking them. Here is kind of tools and build materials like walls. By the front door going towards the town, we've got books and extra tools. Little bedroom. Okay, here's a pro tip. So we have a bed here. The bed is an object that you need in order to set a reset point, right? A respawn point. And then you can hold down R in order to teleport instantly back to it. I think it's 5 seconds. 1, 2, bingo. Here's the thing. Unlike almost everything else in this house, you can't build the bed. You have to buy it. Well, you don't have to buy it. Maybe my first pro tip of the day is, interested in a bed or a microscope or some other expensive item in the early game when you can't afford it? How convenient that all of your fellow townspeople have items in their houses that you might want access to. And wow, did I mention that they really don't care if you borrow them indefinitely? I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life or what kind of morals you should have, but this game has absolutely no qualms with, should we say, palming an item from one of the other townsfolk. And so that's my first pro tip. If there's an item that you really, really want for your experience and you can't quite afford it yet, you can always borrow one from someone else in the town. Now, let's get to the first functional bit. In this room, we have our infuser, workbench, sawmill, squeezer, which is a little bit later. This was several hours in before you get this. You can't build this. You do have to buy this one. And then finally, just a large crate. Here is one of the biggest flows that I've done since I started the game. Pop open the infuser, put it somewhere on the screen. Pop open the squeezer, put it somewhere on the screen. Pop open the sawmill. This is the upgraded saw bench, okay? So when you first start, you'll get a saw bench where you have to manually cut the wood. The sawmill is one of the first automated components that you can pick up, and I'll demonstrate it in just a second. Pop open the crate so we can see all of our materials. And then finally, pop open the workbench. This is why I love having a workroom in the house, because I can now pop open all of these various components and I can work on all of them all at once. So, boom, sawmill. I need to cut some more logs. Boom, get half of them. Split this in half. I don't want to do all 99. Boom, send them with shift click. I set the target. Okay, wind it up. The clockwork components are so cool. This allows you to automate so much of the process. And then it's just going to start making planks. And then we're like, okay, well, you know what? We need more infused wood planks. So crate stores our basic materials that we're using. Sawmill cuts logs into planks and planks into sticks and also makes sawdust. Infuser takes planks and sticks and infuses them with resin from trees, sap, to make basically treated lumber, right? And so, okay, boom, let's take 20 sticks or planks here rather and start getting them infused to make more infused wood planks. And you know what? I would actually like to get some more resin. Squeezer is an item that you can eventually buy that allows you, instead of putting sap taps on trees, to put in wood or acorns and automatically squeeze that into resin. Right, so now I've got all this stuff working for me. And let's say that my goal ultimately was to make some treated frames. Now as this is going, I'll be able to build up enough materials to craft some more treated frames. And then I can individually close all of these menus if I'd like, or I can just walk away. Once you get far enough away, they'll close on their own. Boom! So that's the house. I think that it's set up pretty nicely. If I have one qualm, it's that actually all of these workshop tools should probably be closer to my bee science zone, which I'll show you in just a minute. Okay, as we move out, we've got a collection of rain tanks around the house, and I'll get to show you soon why rainwater is important. We also have some regular barrels. There's nothing in them, but in theory, once we get enough resin, we can start storing some of the resin in these barrels. And then we've got most of the apiary right here. So here's one pro tip. You might be thinking, Teak, why do you have so many regular beehives? One mistake that I made early on in the game was rushing towards the advanced apiaries, thinking, oh, I need to get those advanced apiaries or basic apiaries. I need to get those bee boxes so that I can start making honey. I need to get the advanced materials, right? But in the early game particularly, you're going to need a ton of honeycomb. And you can only get honeycomb from regular natural beehives. And so what I actually ended up doing is, rather than trying to craft beehives, just go around the starting island with your hammer and pick some up. You're going to need extra bees anyway, and that's a way to get them. You're going to need honeycomb anyway, and that's a way to get it. And then come back, with your handful of beehives and go ahead and set up basic beehives for your apiary sooner rather than later. And so often now I'll go around and I've got this down to kind of a science, make sure that we're by default targeting our basic inventory, which you are. Boom, 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 boom. Shift click, grab all the honeycomb. Set up whatever bees I have in there to breed and start making more honeycomb. And I've just got kind of a variety of bees. And if they happen to make 3 offspring instead of 2, then we've got an extra bee to take back to the bee boxes, which I'll show you shortly. Boom, 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 boom. I tend to prefer, if I see a blessed bee, to take the blessed bee out. Truthfully, I'm still not even really sure what blessed bees do. So here's one. You can see the sparkle on it. I haven't quite figured that out yet, and so that's something that I'm really interested to see. I've noticed that I can make blessed queens. I have a suspicion that this is related to some of the end-game breeding that you can do, but that's one of the mysteries that I've not yet solved. So we make our rounds, gather up our honeycomb, get our bees back to making more, and then check in on our advanced apiaries. So this is a lot of doing, particularly the advanced apiaries. You really need 6 treated frames. You can use basic, they're just less durable. You really need 6 frames in order to fill these up. And depending on how productive your bees are, they actually might be filling more than 6. If you're truly efficient, you might actually have to take some frames out as it's going. I definitely get the sense that this game is balanced to be easier to manage co-op. I feel like I'm perennially behind the tasks, and that's one thing I've struggled with, is I just cannot keep up with all of the beekeeping, all of the breeding, all of the flower tending, all of the selling, bottling. If you really try to get every engine in the game turning at once, you're gonna get behind on some of them. And so maybe pro tip, don't worry about it. This game is meant to be relaxing. Nothing will fail. There's no existential threat. Your bees won't die off if you leave them. It's okay to just let some parts of your machine stall out. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed and you really just want to go explore, just go explore. Let your bees sit. They're going to be fine. Anyway, it seems that our uncommon bees have made us a full batch of new material here. Let's open up the full inventory so we can see what we're doing. Take out all of these capped frames. I happen to have just made some new empty frames, so we can go ahead and replace them. And if we wanted, we could get a new queen going right away to start making more material. And you know what? We might as well do that so you can see how quickly it fills up. One thing that I've been doing is I keep one crate outside to keep extra treated frames. You want to be a little bit ahead on the frames because they do wear out eventually, and you'll be surprised how hard it is to keep them all in cycle. So we had some uncommon bees there making produce. Here we've got some vibrant bees, which is one of the early game hybrids. And look, they made a blessed bee. We'll take that. Before I check these others, let me go get this next part of the process started. So here's what I call my bee science area. Okay, it's got a rehabilitator, which is where you release bees back to the wild to restore populations of hybrids and rare species. I actually haven't done this much. I'm told that you really have to put a lot of bees into the rehabilitator if you want to restore a species, and so that's something I'm interested in pursuing. We've also got the predictor and the microscope. Use the microscope to look at traits of new bees. When you newly discover a bee, you put it in the microscope, and then you can figure out how long does it live, how productive is it, how fertile is it, and how stable is its genome, right? And then once you've looked at several bees of a new species, they start to show up in your bee almanac. What's it actually called? It's called, I don't remember one of them is called Abby's Folio, but I think that's for the flowers. I don't remember what this book is called. You'll find all the books very early on by going through the guide. The predictor is used for once you've produced a queen by breeding 2 bees to see basically it's Punnett squares. It's basic Mendelian genetics, right? Is what kind of potential offspring can I make? It's fun. It's a fun touch. I actually quite like this. There's a little bit of real biology going on here, or at least the semblance of it, which is nice. Have a large crate out here in case I do end up having things I need to store. As an example, we might need to store some bees before we set up their bee box. Okay, here's another pro tip. Make these. When you're in the early game, bee boxes are going to feel hard to make. You've got to make an apiary, you need a bunch of honeycomb, and then instead of turning it into a productive apiary, you turn it into a bee box. But this is a lifesaver. As you go on, you're going to get so many bees. Having a place to put a bunch of them is absolutely crucial. So we've got our common bee box, our forest, verge, rocky, which is an early species you'll find under rocks. Verdant and Vibrant are 2 early hybrids, and the Uncommon is a kind of hidden species that you can find on the starting island. You can learn about it from the professor in town. He'll tell you about it. So we got our little bee boxes, and hey, the bee boxes can even hold hybrids, and they're represented by the letters underneath. So this is a forest, but this is a forest rocky, and it's all organized based on their traits. So you can see, as an example, the bees here are level 4 lifetime, level 4 productivity, level 4 fertility, and level 5 genome stability, whereas these are a 4-4-5-4. You can also see sometimes there's blessed bee, sometimes there's a queen. I really love the bee box system for organizing the bees. I've quite enjoyed it. Okay, but I'm getting distracted. I'm already behind. It's already 4 in the evening. So we got all of these capped frames. Now we got to get the product out. When you first start doing this, you have an uncapping bench that you work manually, much like the original saw bench. But in this case, set our target. Boom, 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 boom. Get some treated frames in there. Wind it up. And it'll start uncapping them. So this thing automatically scrapes them. As it's scraping, it's making propolis, which you use to make glue. And then it's going to leave you with an uncapped frame, which will then transfer to the centrifuge to get out honey and wax, special product, seeds. I love this part, actually, I really do. While that's working, I'll show you what we do in the bee science area. So we've got all of our bee boxes here, and I have my one swarmer here. So there's 2 kinds of advanced apiaries. There's the advanced apiary, which is better for making product, right? Honey, beeswax, special pearls, whatever it is that your bees can make. And then the swarmer. Any bees you put in the swarmer won't make any standard output. They're not making honey at all, but they will create more offspring. This is super useful as you're discovering new species to try to build up your basic supply of genetics for that species and to start trying to make hybrids. So you can see that I'm trying to build up my supply here of vibrant bees. What I'm doing particularly is I'm trying to get some that have maxed out stats for fertility without going too high on genetic stability so that we can, keep breeding for more value. So here's one that rolled a 5 on fertility. They're all very, very low on productivity, so we're going to end up doing some crossbreeding. That's a 5 on fertility. Ooh. This vibrant bee actually has a 4 on productivity. It's higher. Yeah, and it's blessed too. Okay, so maybe for our next batch, we'll take the blessed bee and this high fertility bee, put them together, and see if we can produce a queen with slightly better output. Let's check it out. Right, so we got vibrant queen here. That's a 4-3, dominant 4, recessive 5 fertility, but unfortunately, it didn't roll that higher productivity. So what are you going to do? We'll let it run out its course anyway. Go ahead and drop off these other vibrant bees that we just picked up. And then we also have what? Forest, verdant, verge. Okay. So verdant, verge, forest. Cool. And by now, all of these frames should be uncapped. And indeed they are. We'll get another batch going here. We can leave the propolis for now. We don't need it. Or we can pick it up and put it in our storage box. And then we go to the centrifuge. Now we toss these uncapped frames in the centrifuge. Again, the starting machine is manual. This is another automatic one. I've loved this advancement in the game. And it'll start spinning out those uncapped frames to try to make, like I said, honey, special products, right? Honey goes here. Looks like we got some comb fragment, some beeswax, and some bee well seeds. And bee well is fantastic. This is a hybrid flower that's increasing our productivity. So cool, we'll let that run through. It's already nighttime, totally crazy. As we produce honey in the centrifuge, we take the honey wax canister. It doesn't have to be honey wax. You can also put something else, just a regular wooden canister. And we're putting that in the fermenter. And this is how you make apicola, which sells for quite a lot. This is the way to accelerate your economy, as far as I can tell. So we take the honey and we put it into the fermenter along with water. It has to have water. Let's go ahead and watch this one cycle here. So the honey and the water ferments over time to make apicola, and then the apicola fills up the apicola tank up to 2,000 bee liters or whatever this unit is that it's using. And then we can take out any product that we have and transfer that to the bottler. Bottler takes in apicola and bottles and makes bottled apicola, which you can then sell for 15 rubies each. This is by far the highest value that I've seen of anything in the game in the early game. As far as I understand, you can also just bottle honey directly instead of fermenting, but in general, I think that it's best to just do this. And hey, here's a pro tip. I was running out of water in the early game because it doesn't rain that often and the rain tank is slow to fill. If you're running out of water, explore the island. On my island, at least, there were a couple rain tanks that were mostly full. And so I was able to carry a bunch of canisters with me using the backpack, right? And go fill them all up and then come back with a ton of water so that I could get the fermenting process off the ground. And so, yeah, highly recommend, the sooner you get to fermenting and bottling, the better in terms of at least accelerating your economy so that you can afford to buy things and advance the game. Go get a boat, move on to the next stages of APICO. Or you can just hang out here and try to hybridize the best bees you can. Ultimately, I think getting to new content is going to really open up at least the bee part of the game, as we start to see new species and hybridize them together. Okay, so fermenter has a canister to fill, good. It's got some water, good. It's got an empty canister of honey, which we can go ahead and go put back. Make sure that Centrifuge has somewhere to drain. We've got this other wax container, which I'll just store here for now. Can swap it out. I like that a lot of your equipment has this kind of little storage area. Almost every bit of equipment in the game has basically a little mini box built in to where you can keep extra canisters or supplies that are relevant to the process. Say you were spicing your fermented product, right? Say you wanted to put some spice in your bottled apicola, then you can very easily do so and keep extras along hand right there in the box. So it looks like we've fully spun out our first set here. Go ahead and pick up these empty frames and all of this produce. We can go back and pick up the rest of these capped frames and the propolis that it made. Put the new capped frame or uncapped frames in the centrifuge. Get them spinning out. Give it another crank. Store our bonus product here, comb fragments, beeswax, propolis. I'll even put some honeycomb in here, maybe give it a sort. We've got some new seeds if we wanted to go plant them, and now we've got more uncapped frames that we can bring back to put into our apiaries. And as you can see, we're already hilariously behind. And this is what I mean, right? The new uncommon bees that we bred already filled all 5 of the frames that we had for them. We've got these bees waiting for us to give them enough frames to work with. We've got all the product from these forest verdant hybrids that needs to be spun out. We've got all the product from the verdant bees over here that needs to be spun out. So it's like, okay, I gotta get this. It's maximum APM beekeeping is what is required of you here. I gotta get these frames. So listen, don't let it bog you down. Like I said, I'm pretty sure that all this stuff is tuned and balanced around a multiplayer experience. You just cannot get ahead as a single player, at least in the early game. Maybe we find more tools later on. Maybe we find more automation. But the good news is bees produce quality content very quickly. And so it can be okay to just segment your days. Oh, for this day and the next day, I'm going to focus on trying to make some money. Let's get some honey. Let's get some apicola. Okay, and then this next day, I'm going to focus on exploring. And maybe this day I'm going to try to tidy up my house and improve my workflow. So there you go. We've got our house with our little entry hall, some various boxes, a bedroom, a workroom that's all tightly constructed together. We've got our main beekeeping area with all of our natural beehives and a bunch of advanced apiaries where we can collect tons of quality content. I've got my bee science zone, as I call it, where I keep our bee boxes with all of our extra copies of every species of bee, microscope, predictor, and bee habilitator, along with uncapper and centrifuge, which we use to process product. I could definitely see improving this later on by having the product processing closer to our beehives and also the fermenting and bottling a little bit closer. We've got our swarmer here where we're making all of our hybrid species and trying to produce as much offspring as possible to have a nice diverse bee genetic pool. And then the things that you already know from the demo. We've got the town, except that in the full release, we have a few more characters who are here, including Nana, who's down in the southwest. Every once in a while, this fellow shows up. What are you buying? Just a shady merchant who shows up at night and has special materials. Some things are locked behind this level up. See, it says, Bee Bank, you need to have discovered at least 22 bees to buy this item. Discovering bees is kind of your level in this game. And as you discover more bees, various merchants will open up more materials for you to take. And next up on the docket for us is going to be going to Skipper, using all of our apicola money, our great wealth of bee money, to buy a standard boat so that we can explore to new environments. That's what's coming up next. I really enjoyed this game so far. I would say that some things that I've struggled with or that felt a little off pace to me, like I said, as I've never played Minecraft, it did take me a little while to get used to the menuing, right? It took me a while to figure out these tricks, right? Where you set up rooms to where you can kind of interact with lots of things all at once, and you take advantage of keyboard shortcuts like that really crucial Q in order to set target menus so that you can quickly work with materials in a set of equipment. Once I started doing that, I felt the game speed up a ton, and I really encourage those of you who play it to try to internalize the shortcuts, whether you're on a keyboard or on a controller. You know, if you want to get a little bit faster in the game, to feel a little bit more smoothness in the game, that made a huge difference to me. And so figuring out what buttons I click, building an intuition for when I shift click, when I right click, when I use Q, etc., that really, really helped me. But I had a bit of a learning curve with that early on. I will also say that in the early game, I went in expecting to get to beekeeping kind of right away, and you really don't. The timing of the game, if you're following the guide closely, is tuned such that you might actually spend several hours before you get to the bee part at all. And so don't feel beholden to the guide. If you're jumping out of your seat to go try to just discover and explore the bees, then leave the guide behind. Go out into the wild, go grab some bees from a beehive and see what you can do. You don't have to wait for the guide to manage your pace, to guide your progress. You can accelerate into bees sooner rather than later. And honestly, that's one thing I wish I had done with my wife last night, was just say, you know what, let's put the guide up for a minute and let's go get some bees and interact. Because frankly, here's a big upside. I think working with the bees is the best part of the game so far. I love kind of micromanaging the genetics, trying to get a diverse pool of each of the species, and trying to see what kind of hybrids we can make in order to maximize different qualities. As an example, in the early game, the verge bee is very unproductive, but it can work in the rain. So even though its base productivity stat is lower than some of your other bees, it has this special trait of being able to work in the rain. How can we hybridize a bee which has that rain trait but is also more productive than the verge bee? You can start addressing these questions really, really early on in the game. I've also loved trying to make just a nice looking space to work in, finding more ways to automate our equipment and to streamline it. And I will say that the thing that I'm most looking forward to doing next is exploring the new biomes. I feel like the game's going to really open up once we get a boat and we go see different areas. We start finding secrets and secret shrines and bee altars and new hidden species and making even more cool high-level hybrids. This is probably a game that I won't stream a ton just because it is so very tranquil compared to a lot of what I play. I tend to prefer to stream games that have much more of a cerebral component where you're really sinking your teeth into decision making. This game is much more of a sandbox game. It's not so much about sinking your teeth into difficult decisions as it is enjoying setting your own pace as you explore this world and as you craft items and expand in all of the things that you're able to do. But I'm quite looking forward to playing it as an evening game, maybe between recordings of YouTube episodes. And hey, if there's interest, maybe I'll check back in the far late game and kind of show you where I am once I've got the coolest, most deeply secret bee hybrids that we can imagine. Anyway, I think that that's a wrap on that video. I'm so glad to have had the opportunity to jump back in to kind of do this cribs tour with you all. Hey, you have suggestions for new players, feel free to leave them in the comments. Or if you have more questions, I'll make sure to check out the comments over the next couple days, and I can try to answer where I'm able. Something that you're interested in before you buy the game, some little bit of inefficiency that you're curious about how to solve. I'm really eager to engage with you all and try to figure that stuff out, because that's one of the things that I like to do in games, right? Is break them down to their constituent pieces and try to put them back together and as tight fitting of an engine as possible. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I've been Sneaky Teak. This has been the full release of APICO and the little house and beekeeping area that I built together with my wife. Thanks for watching this video, and I look forward to catching you all again in the next episode. Bye for now.